It's heavy.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 214. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters, we are in for a surprise today, y'all. Because on our latest video, when we watched the first 48, I was telling y'all about we're going to get back to this man's channel next Tuesday. But surprise, surprise, surprise. He dropped a video on this Good Friday. And y'all already know who that man is. Mike from That Chapter. Going back to Mike, y'all. In the title of the video, the podcaster stalked to death by an obsessed fan. Now, we'll watch plenty of videos of stalkers and obsessed fan people and all that, but it just still blows my mind how somebody can be so obsessed to the point they want to stalk them, let alone kill them, and you don't even know the person for real. You just see them on TV and on your phone, social media, you know what I'm saying? And you get that obsessed with them? I just find that weird. Like, I think something may be wrong with these type of people. You know what I'm saying? They may have a mental illness. I don't know, just my opinion. But we're gonna go and check this video out. But before we check it out, my brothers and sisters, you know what you got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need. We back to Mike from That Chapter on a Friday. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this video, we're going to talk about a very successful woman. She was a successful podcaster, but she got some extremely unwanted attention from a very crazed fan. This went on for almost a year until it ended in the most tragic way possible. Before we get into it, if you would like to see new crime videos every week, please subscribe because this is all about that chapter. Now let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. And get whatever you may need.
In the early hours of Friday, the 10th of March 2023, a call came in to the Redmond Police Department, and that's Redmond just outside of Seattle, Washington. Now this call came from a fairly fancy, wealthy, upscale neighborhood. It's in the same area where the Microsoft headquarters, they're located there. And the house that we will get into, the house was worth $1.2 million. The 911 call that was made to the police, that came in at 1:45 a.m. A woman had ran from that house. She had booked it running to a neighbor's house to call the police there to let them know that an intruder, a stalker, had broken into the house. That woman told the police that she had heard shots and to get there, like, real quick. Now, the Redmond Police Department, it was only 3 minutes away from the house, so they got there pretty sharpish. When the police arrived, neighbors had begun gathering kind of, on the street, but the house itself, it was dark and it was like eerily quiet. So with the reports of a shooter in the house, shots had been fired, officers, they gathered up outside the home, they drew their sidearms and they announced their presence to anybody who was inside that house. However, inside that house they would find bodies, as in more than one, and this would be the ending, the tragic and terrible ending to a story that had gone on for almost a year. This wasn't the first time the police had been called to this very address, if you can believe that. Someone had been watching it for months, looking through the windows, calling to the door, following the people who lived there as they traveled across America. And finally, this very night, they had gone inside.
But you heard what he just said. This shit been going on for months that somebody been doing this. Why was this not prevented then? Who was this doing that? The police? I ain't finna just make assumptions because we just get into the video, but it just sounds like the police could have stopped this before we got to this point. Y'all knew about this shit. Why didn't you stop it?
33-year-old Zohreh Sadeghi was originally from Iran, as was her husband, 35-year-old Malid Nazeri. They had been married since 2011, both working in Tehran in software. They were both software developers, rising up the ranks of the companies they worked in Iran until the married couple, they moved to the United States of America. Milad, he moved to the Seattle, Washington area in 2015 with his wife Zohreh, following him a year later as a graduate student. Malid worked for Google and most recently as lead software engineer for Amazon in Redmond, Washington. Zohreh, a PhD student at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and then as a software engineer at a mortgage company. Both were self-styled techies who had moved across the world to be at the very heart of it in the Seattle area. And that house, it was a beautiful place and cost a pretty penny, but software engineers working for the companies that they did, they were successful. So far so good for this young couple, and Zohreh's mother, she would move in with them too into that very house, as we can just presume that she's probably getting on a little bit in years. Now this is when the trouble began. Now this part, it's a little bit vague with all of the news reports that have been released, but Zohreh appeared on a podcast, or on a podcast that was streaming, and the podcast was about gaining employment in the tech industry, in the software industry, and it seems like the podcast was specifically for Persian people, from people from Iran and that sort of thing. Fair enough, right? I mean, she worked in the industry, her husband was getting pretty big in the industry, she would know everything somebody would need to do. Someone heard her speak about this on this podcast, and they liked what they heard, but not in a normal, healthy way at all. It appears now he may have heard this on the app Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse is a fairly new app. It's only been up since around 2020. It's one you have to be invited to join, and essentially it's an audio-only thing. You join rooms, and people are talking about different topics and blah, blah, blah. And apparently this podcast, this discussion, was played on Clubhouse. So Zohreh was speaking on Clubhouse about this very topic, and who just so happened to tune in? 38-year-old Ramin Kodahharamrazai. Ramin was originally, much like Zohreh and Malid, from Iran, and he was a trucker who lived in Texas, in the Houston area. He had been married for 7 years to a woman named Nida, and they had a daughter together. His story kind of almost mirrors Zohreh and Milad's story. Him and his wife, they married in Iran before moving across to America. Now, they had actually divorced back in 2018, Ramin and his wife, well, ex-wife. But it still seems that they remained close. In fact, one thing we'll find about Ramin is that it seems like he didn't have very many friends at all. His wife would say they would talk all the time, and he would tell her about, romances he had, women he was seeing, and she would say he was telling her this, not as like some kind of evil ex trying to like twist the knife in, but more like he had nobody else to talk to. A lonely guy who, as a trucker, he would go on long, road trips, right? And while he was driving, perhaps he tuned in to the Clubhouse app, listening to people speaking in his native tongue, in Farsi, Persian. And then one time he heard 33-year-old Zohreh. And Ramin and Zohreh, they sparked up a friendship, yapping away about this and that, talking on Clubhouse. He followed up with her after she had spoken one day. Now, why he even tuned into that discussion? He was a 38-year-old trucker. What interest would he have in getting jobs in the tech industry?
True.
Who knows? Maybe he just liked hearing people speak his native tongue. But anyway, regardless, they started speaking away, and she is...
That's a good question real quick, y'all. Why in the hell he even joined this chat group, or whatever you want to call it? Like he's Mike just said, he a truck driver. Why are you interested? Maybe he was thinking about stop truck driving and getting into the tech industry. But I think the smartest thing to think, or the most logical reason, is they was speaking his native language. Like they was from the same place he was from, so it was a connection there. Let's go.
Somebody who had a bit of a platform, a bit of an online presence. She was only more than happy to help out, chat. They spoke fairly often, apparently even meeting up one time. Even though she lived all the way in Seattle, he lived in Texas, but he would travel all the time. Way too many times, as you will see. But Ramin, it seemed like he was becoming a bit full-on for Zoe. It seemed like he wanted a little bit more than just a friendship, and then that's when Zoe cut him off. He had fallen for her, and she wasn't, too keen on that at all. And she said, okay, let's stop this right here. Let's put it to bed. This can't end well. How right she was. He then began one of the most obsessive stalking campaigns of Zoe and her husband Millard you will ever hear. And so began the messages, the calls, the gifts, the knocking on the door. One time Zoe even had a business trip in Denver, from Seattle to Denver. He followed her. One particular time he called her over 100 times in one day. Can you believe that? And I mean, obviously, what's your first thing? You're going to turn off your phone. You're going to bounce your phone off a wall. But she works in tech. She can't exactly just do that. So she would block all his numbers. He would still find a way to call her. She would block him on social media. He would still find a way to contact her. She would block all private numbers. He figured it out. How, in fact, he even got her phone number is a mystery. She never gave it to him. Every time they would contact when they were friends, they would talk online. In November 2022, that's when she told him, all right, stop. Stop talking to me. You stop trying to contact me. Verbally, she said it twice. 2 times. Stop. Obviously, he didn't listen. He would call nearby businesses, asking for her. He would manage to get in contact with her, saying that he was in her neighborhood and that he was coming over. He would then go to nearby businesses in her neighborhood, go into them, use their phones to call her.
See, now I'm at the point of, after all this goddamn stalking harassment that this man doing, why she ain't told the police yet? Why she ain't got the police involved with this shit, y'all? I'm pretty sure at some point she bout to, but I feel like after the dude called you 100 damn times in one day, you should have been letting the police know what the fuck going on. Let's go.
He would call, cry, begging her to meet with him. He would message her saying, delete your Instagram or make it public so I can see too. Another particular time, he was parked in her neighborhood. He was watching her house. He saw her husband. He waited till her husband, Millard, left. He was going to Australia, and as soon as he left the house and was out of the area, he called her door with flowers. He is watching her all the time. He would send things like jewelry and neck scarf, which, Zara would immediately give to the police and report these incidents to the police, but nothing happened.
Okay, goddamn. Well, everything I just said a couple of minutes or seconds ago just don't even damn matter. She telling the police, giving them evidence. That's evidence. This dude selling me jewelry. He giving me flowers. You know what I'm saying? This dude is fucking crazy. And the police, apparently, I guess, just ain't do shit. Or they ain't do enough. Good old police. They never fail to fuck up.
One report she made to the police, she wrote how he threatened to show up into her front yard and light himself and her tree, which they had in the front yard, on fire. He said he would do this to prove that he would love her forever. And he said that nothing short of his own death would stop him from obsessing over her. As you can imagine, it's absolutely wreaked havoc on her psychology. One time in January, she had to have a back surgery, and she was scared shitless because she knew that if she had surgery, she wouldn't be able to run if something happened. She developed anxiety, insomnia. Her and her husband, Millard, became so fearful that he would one day break in and do God knows what to them. That knocking on the door and calling them just wouldn't cut the mustard anymore. Unfortunately, we found out. On the 2nd of March 2023, a bench warrant was issued for Ramin Kodakaram Rezai's arrest. He was charged with 1 count of misdemeanor stalking and 2 counts of telephone harassment. The very next day, a judge granted a temporary order of protection, with a hearing set for a non-temporary order of protection. So this was at the start of March. Zoe was requesting that this temporary order would last 99 years. She knew, he would never stop. He had serious issues, but this wasn't her goddamn problem to deal with. That's his problem. Although whatever, mad shit was going on in his head, he was dangerous at this point. Yeah. And for her, what it started off as just, trying to help out other people, help people maybe who were in her situation, give them a leg up. It turned into getting the attention of this guy who turned out to be a full-blown psychopath. Now, one thing about Ramin is he never had any prior arrests, or anything like no history at all. But something in him... So even though this order of protection was granted, there was one problem. The police in Redmond, they couldn't find him. They couldn't make contact with Raman. Well, for one, he lived out of state. He lived in Texas. And two, as a truck driver, you never know where he is.
Yeah.
Then, late on the 9th of March, he crept up this very quiet, leafy, residential street in his red truck. The road, it was on a hill. He glided his red truck up. Nobody spotted him. Nobody saw him. This was a Thursday night. Nobody would have been around to witness anything. How long he waited, how long he was watching that house, no one knows, but he had just been there the day before. What was going through his messed up mind, nobody knows, but at about 1:30 a.m. he got out of his truck and he started walking towards a house he knew, you know, the surroundings very, very well. He'd been stalking it for months, and the day before, as I said, he'd pretty much done a trial run of what he was about to do. And he found that one of the bedroom windows would give him access into the house.
Damn.
It appears he got in, and there he encountered Zore's mother. They had some kind of altercation, and she managed, though, to flee the house. She managed to book it. She ran out of the house. She ran to a neighbor's house, slamming on the door, and in there she managed to call the police. But she would say that as she was running, she had heard shots ring out right behind her.
We have the active hostage situation. The shooter is not detained.
Redmond officers arrived real soon and drew their weapons with the reports of an active shooter who also happened to be an insane person.
Why do I got the funny feeling that that dude killed himself? I feel like he killed that lady and her husband, then turned the gun on him. I just got that feeling right now. I got it bad. I feel it. I feel like he done did some hoe ass, weak ass, pussy ass shit like that. Let's see.
And it didn't take long for them to find the first person. As they drew out their sidearms, walked towards the house, called out, Redmond Police Department, just at the front door, they found Millard. Now, he was still alive at the time, but he would pass away within minutes. He'd been shot once in the chest. He'd been shot and he'd managed to try and run out of the house to escape, but he collapsed just at the door. Police then went through the house, slowly calling out, checking every room, until they eventually got to the master bedroom. And there is where they found Zore. She'd been shot. She'd been shot dead. And on the ground beside her lay this psycho. He, after shooting Milad and shooting Zore while she was in bed, he turned the gun on himself. He said,
Now, y'all can't tell me I ain't called that one. I call that shit, my brothers and sisters. I just had that fucking feeling just how stupid and crazy and insane he was. It's just like, he ain't gonna want to face. I knew this bitch ass motherfucker wasn't gonna want to face no repercussions for this shit. I just had a feeling like he was the type of motherfucker. I'm gonna take her life, and then I'm gonna take my life. Then we gonna be together forever. Or I don't want to live no more. But since I don't want to live no more, I'm gonna make sure the love of my life don't live no more either. I just had this feeling about this motherfucker, man. I knew it.
Said this would only end with his death. It shouldn't have had to end with hers too, and it probably went out exactly as he hoped, that they would go together, which kind of makes this just all the more sickening. She'd done everything right. She'd contacted the police multiple times, in January, in December, filing the order in March. They both did everything right, and still, there was a guy who just couldn't take no for an answer, a guy who had lost his mind, and had then done one of the most horrific and disturbing acts of finally being so obsessed with somebody he couldn't stop, and eventually he broke in and murdered them.
This is the absolute worst outcome, for a stalking case. Restraining order is simply a piece of paper that allows officers to take enforcement action should a suspect violate the court order, but a piece of paper does not protect a person when someone is intent on causing them harm.
It's a real tragic story of, as I said, people who did everything right, and still, Zore just happened to have a presence one day, a platform to speak and try and help people, and one person just latched onto it like a goddamn tick. And eventually was just sucking the life out of her until he had to end her life and end his own, because he killed her because he was so obsessed with her, but it seems like he also couldn't live without her. Just a real sad, sick piece of shit.
Seriously.
1.5 million of you, by the way. That's the amount of people who...
Seriously, y'all. Oh my God, man. I got 2 takeaways from this one right here, y'all. The first one. I think this is the first video that we have watched. Well, she wasn't even a celebrity or nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? She wasn't social media famous. Like, she wasn't a OnlyFans model that he was obsessed with, or a singer, you know what I'm saying, or a actress, or just a big social media icon on Instagram. She wasn't nothing like that. She was nothing like that, bro. She was into tech, and she had a group talking about tech shit. Like, it just show you that either me and you, somebody can come obsessed with us. Like, you ain't got to be big and blown up and be all this and that and have millions of views on the internet and shit for somebody to fall in love with you. No, you can be your regular damn self and somebody can fall in love with you, man. So y'all just be careful out there. For real, man, because, hey, somebody might look at you like you the greatest thing on earth, and if you can't be with them, then you can't be with nobody. I'm just saying, it is a possibility, and that right there show it. Number 2, the fucking police. The fucking police, bro. They never fail. They never fail to disappoint me. They never fail to amaze me. Like, bro, this lady showing y'all all these records, showing y'all these phone calls, showing y'all how this man then pulled up at her house and doing all this and doing all that. And y'all, bruh, I don't know if ain't all that harassment shit enough to put him in jail? It's probably not. That's probably just how corrupt the fucking world is. Cause I don't know all the ins and outs of what's legal and illegal and all that. I think how the shit set up in the United States, I think the most the police probably could have did was give the dude a fucking like restraining order or some shit like that. I don't know. I feel like, bro, fuck it. If it is like that, that's all they can do. Then that shit need to be changed, bro. That man should have been in jail. Long story short, short story long. He should have been in jail way before it got to this point. Because of all that fucking harassment and all that shit he was doing, man. Police, y'all need to step it up. Government, just step it up, man. Just do better, man. Because if you don't, we're going to keep running into problems like this and a whole lot of other problems. And I'm just still mad as fuck because the bitch ass motherfucker killed her. Then he going to take his own life because he don't want to face the repercussions. Or maybe he was just that damn crazy. Well, how he said this going to end with my death and he took her along with him. This shit crazy. I'm mad. I'm finna go and let y'all go. One more thing I want to say. This video was a little different from Mike, y'all. It was a more serious tone, a more straight to the point, it was a little different than what Mike usually do. I don't know if he, pivoting and just, trying to evolve to another way of telling his stories, and I'm not complaining about it. He's still Mike, he's still a GOAT, like it's still great. I just noticed that there was a little more serious and dark tone-ish, you know what I'm saying? And hey, more power to you, Mike, if this is your new direction. I digress again, man. Y'all hit that like button on my video and Mike's video. Like I say, man, I always make sure you go to the original video and like that bit. You make sure you comment over here. You make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you ain't subscribed to Mike, do that to his too. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to get a new Mr. Ballin tomorrow or Sunday, but best believe Mr. Ballin coming up. And best believe Let Me Talk to You episode 3 coming up this weekend. But until I see y'all again, my brothers and sisters, one more thing I got to say. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.